All right. We are underway for our playoff preview edition here on Prime Sports Network for the NASCAR Cup Series in 2024. CJ Verdun, of course, joining me. As you can see right there, that is the upcoming race that we are going to be talking about in the second part of our show. But to kick things off, it's going to be about the playoffs. How's it going, CJ? We're finally here.
We are finally at the 10 race stretch of the playoffs after another crazy end to the regular season. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. It's interesting because the playoffs really come by fast because there's 10 races in it. So I think that's another good thing. But we had some surprises over the last few weeks to get in. And I must say that the race on Sunday night, for the most part, it was typically, it could happen at Darlington. It was boring for a while with Kyle Larson dominating. And then as soon as there was a caution, big surprise, as soon as there was a caution in the final segment, everything changed. And wow, what a race to the finish between Briscoe and Kyle Busch. I mean, that was really something else. I hope Chase Briscoe performs well during the playoffs. I think the worst thing that could happen is Chase Briscoe does nothing and Kyle Busch winds up having a good run during the playoffs. And he came that close to actually being somebody that could have contended for a championship. But either way, that was a gutsy ride by Chase Briscoe.
Yeah, and it goes to the track, and it's something that we've talked about forever in terms of how you get good racing. It's not about necessarily the car or anything like that. It's about making the tires wear, and that's exactly what Darlington does. And that's why you had a good race at the end, because you had old tires versus new tires. Track position, is track position going to overcome grip? Is grip going to overcome track position? And it was a really good race. And Briscoe just nailed it on that last restart. That gave him enough of an advantage that by the time Busch was able to get himself through the traffic with his new tires, Briscoe had insulated himself enough. And yeah, Busch got very close, but then that goes to the aerodynamics of this car, where once you get in the wake, Busch even said afterward, once he got into his Briscoe's dirty air, he just didn't have the forward momentum to be able to get there and actually make a pass happen, which is what we saw the majority of the race up until that point. So
Yeah. It's interesting. I did the show on Saturday, the starting lineup show, and we went over a couple of drivers that looked pretty good based on qualifying, which were Briscoe and Hocevar. We didn't really talk much about those drivers. I mean, why should we? They didn't really have a great track record overall, except earlier that year. And Hocevar actually did really well in the Truck Series and an Xfinity Series at Darlington. But there was no reason to talk about it unless he did qualify well, which he did. Briscoe, same thing. He actually had a good result this year. And so it turned out to be one of those situations where it was like, all right, well, he's probably going to be around, which I think he was, around, I think he was 40-1 on race day. Sort of like a Dillon deal from a few weeks ago. Look, you want to throw a buck on one of these guys, go right ahead. You don't really think it's going to happen, just like Dillon winning. But we almost had Dillon win. We had Burton win. We had Briscoe win. I love this. I don't see any reason why it's not good. But why do you see a trend here for any particular reason, or is this just one of those things?
I think it's one of those things you've got, and we could have another one this weekend because of the nature of the track. I mean, if you look at Daytona, you've got a history of interesting kind of first-time winners popping up there that you don't expect. Darlington, not so much, except for the fact that, exactly like you said, Briscoe qualified well, and he's got a pretty decent history there. So Dillon, and I think we've seen it, Dillon I would put in a different category because I think we've seen it with Kyle Busch as well. Richard Childress Racing, I think at the beginning of the year, I had probably both of them in my top 16 and making the playoffs, because it's inevitable that Dillon wins a race. It's inevitable that Busch wins a race, but they've had so many problems this year that other people have stepped up and other teams have stepped up and been able to take that mantle away from them, and they've not gotten over their problems until just recently. So I put them in a little bit different category. I come into Atlanta, it's not Talladega or Daytona, but it's still super speedway draft style racing. And you get those big crashes where you get a lot of carnage. And if you're able to survive those, it takes a healthy dose of luck. You might have somebody pop out that was completely unexpected as well. Chase Briscoe, you got to go back to New Hampshire in June, end of June, for his last top 10 finish. And it was actually runner up at New Hampshire. And then prior to that, it was Darlington. So he only had one other top 10 finish prior to winning, and that was at New Hampshire, splitting the two Darlington races. So, yeah, somewhat you can put him in that category of unexpected. I would argue Carson Hocevar shouldn't be in there because I put him in my fantasy lineup for Darlington every single time, just about. I considered Briscoe, but I put that out before qualifying happened. And then when I saw the qualifying, the battle that he had in Xfinity with Kyle Busch years before just shows he's one of those guys that gets this track. So I think it's just one of those things. We could see another one this weekend with Atlanta, so don't be surprised. But I don't know that there's anything unique or different about what has been going on to produce the unexpected winners more recently.
Okay, it's time to talk about the playoffs, and let us move over to the futures so we can and I haven't looked at we haven't really talked about these futures for a few weeks, so we'll try to make some predictions here, but as well as, of course, what we're going to do is we're going to give you our final four picks for Phoenix, our champion, of course, and we'll take a look at maybe a couple of sleepers to keep an eye on, not necessarily to win the championship, but maybe you get to the final four, or maybe you do something like hey, I'm going to pick Briscoe to get to the final 8, something like that. But just a couple of sleepers maybe to keep an eye on. And by the way, just referencing what we went with to start the season was... Do you remember your predictions?
Probably Hamlin, Larson. Probably Blaney.
No.
Did I put Logano?
You're forgetting your champion.
Bell?
No, that was me.
No, I don't know then. I forgot.
William Byron.
Oh, Byron, yes. Okay.
And the last one?
That looked good early. Not so much now.
Well, that's true. That seems to be William Byron. But the other was Joey Logano. So you had Byron, Hamlin, Larson, Logano.
I knew I had a Penske guy in there. Just couldn't remember which one.
Byron was your champ. And do you remember what your sleeper was?
Reddick?
No.
I don't know then.
Buescher. So Buescher was 20-1. What was Reddick? Reddick was 16-1 when the season started. So my 4, I also had Byron, just like you. I had Chastain, who didn't even make the playoffs. And then I had Elliott and Bell, with Bell being my champ. And Chastain was my championship sleeper, and all he did was sleep. So he didn't do anything. It was a disastrous year for Ross Chastain. So there you go. That's what we talked about. Those were our predictions before the season began. And now we're going to go ahead and take a look at what we will do here. First of all, let's take a look at the futures before we get into our predictions. All right, so what are we going to say here? It's going to be Larson, Hamlin.
Larson and Hamlin. Bell probably third.
Yeah, either that or they're all top 3 together. Hamlin, Larson, Bell. Those would be the obvious ones, right? So let's see what we got here. Yeah. Let's see. There's Larson, 4-1. Hamlin's about tied. And there's Bell. So perfect, pretty much. Not a surprise.
Fairly separate.
Okay, so who do we think should be next after this? Let's see who the contenders are. The contenders would be Reddick, Byron, Blaney, Elliott. Maybe? You think those are the top contenders? Reddick, Byron, Blaney,
I would say Reddick, Blaney.
Reddick, Blaney are next?
Yeah, I'll put Byron in that list only because of Yeah. Only, yeah. Agreed.
Reddick. Yeah, he's just too hot coming into the playoffs. Blaney next.
Yep.
Byron.
Yes, I'll go Blaney. Oh, Byron, really? No way. No way I'd go for that right now. There's Blaney.
And there's Elliott.
And there's Elliott.
It's not a bad number for Elliott. It's really not a bad number for both Blaney and Elliott.
No.
And then who do you think is next?
Both of those look pretty good right now.
Let's see.
Logano.
Keselowski, Logano. Gibbs?
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
All right.
No.
No Gibbs. Okay. Truex! He's all the way at the bottom of the standings. There's Logano and Keselowski. I actually thought Truex was going to come after Logano and Keselowski. There's Gibbs, but a big jump, 35.
I almost said Truex, just based on the fact that he seems to be getting a lot of love for whatever reason in Vegas, despite the fact that his results really don't show it.
And there's the rest. Bowman, and then the ones that are considered, just forget it, you save your money, are Briscoe, Suarez, Cindric, and Burton. Out of those four, who would you take to make at least to win a round or two? In other words, be there for the next round or two.
I'd say Briscoe.
Okay.
Briscoe or Suarez, certainly, but Briscoe for me.
All right. And then how about between Gibbs and Bowman? Who do you trust more?
I don't know.
Neither. I mean Bowman for me because
tough.
he's a veteran and he's actually had a pretty decent season even though he's kind of cooled off a little bit. But I mean Gibbs hasn't won a race yet.
He's gotten better recently. So yeah, that's disappointing. Probably Bowman just because Gibbs hasn't won a race, but Gibbs gets top 10s consistently, whereas Bowman's kind of more up and down.
Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the races and whether or not you believe they're going to be a factor in any of these rounds. And if so, which ones? Because first of all, we're going to be dealing with Atlanta, which is like Daytona and Talladega. And then, of course, we've got short track at Watkins Glen, and then road course, and then short track with Bristol. So definitely there's variety, no question about that. And then in the round of 12, you have another road course, and then you got Talladega, so another super speedway. So you got a super speedway in the first two rounds. You've got a road course in the first two rounds. And the, I guess, normal type of tracks are Bristol in the round of 16 and Kansas in the round of 12. And then things get normal the rest of the way. There's no road courses. There's no, you do have Martinsville, but there's no road courses, super speedways. Are you okay with this setup?
No, I don't like two super speedways and two road courses in the rounds like that. I'm okay with spacing them out. I'm okay with having two road courses and two super speedways in the 10 race stretch, but round to round is a little bit of a challenge because you've got to, especially when you come to a place like Talladega, or if you're not good, alternatively, on a road course, you've got to have your work done basically at Kansas if you look to the next round. So, Talladega is very much a crapshoot. Atlanta can be very much a crapshoot, and say I'm not a great road course driver. Watkins Glen and Charlotte, I can throw those both out the windows. So I basically have to perform at Bristol and Kansas. I don't know that necessarily is the best timing of the schedule. So for me, I would rather see them spaced further apart, like take Charlotte, put it further down, maybe put it in the next round or something like that. Atlanta, I don't know. I put it back to the 1.5 mile oval where it's less of a super speedway and maybe you've got a different outcome there. So I just don't like them being back to back.
Yeah, I don't like the fact that there are two road courses in the playoffs. I think one's enough, but and maybe even having one each of the super speedways and the road courses. Yeah, that I think makes more sense. But anyway, you said the schedule came out for next year. Is anything changed dramatically?
Yeah, so Miami came out of the playoffs. Miami is now going to be in March. Playoffs have got, let's see, Phoenix again is going to be the ender.
We all love that.
Phoenix.
We all love Phoenix being the championship race. It's such an awesome race at Phoenix. Yes, yes, no, no, no.
Yeah, that's about it. And then a stop in the middle of the year at Mexico City. So nothing really dramatic with the schedule. Probably the biggest news is that they're going to Mexico City for another road course.
Okay, great. And they're not taking any road courses out?
Now we've got Charlotte Roval October 5th. We've got Watkins Glen is actually out of the playoffs. That's August 10th. So based on the Olympics not happening, we can kind of go back to the normal schedule. But yeah, the addition of Mexico City. That's about it.
Okay.
Yeah, Circuit of America is still there as well.
So basically, the extra week they're bringing back, that's going to be the Mexico City road course. Okay. All right. Okay. So we have, by the way, shout out to one of our young viewers, Marcus Villarreal. Is that how you pronounce your name, Marcus? Villarreal? Villarreal probably sounds better. He's 19 today. CJ, happy birthday to Marcus.
Congratulations. Excellent.
And he wants to know who we're going to pick, so we're going to get to that. And he predicts Christopher Bell will win. So, well, Marcus, I hope you were listening earlier in the year when Bell, let's see what Bell was when the season began. Let's see, I forget what I got him at. He was 8-1. So it's almost been cut in half. So hopefully you got him at the number I did. But he still has to win it. Okay. Now, let's go with our picks. So we don't need to go round by round. Let's just go ahead and get your final four. So, do you have any major surprises as far as your final four? You going chalk?
No. No, I don't. It's going to be the same same three actually that we've been talking about pretty much every single week. I expect them to get there.
Really?
The fourth one is kind of more, the fourth one's more of a flip of the coin. But so Larson, Hamlin, I think Bell gets there, and then for my fourth driver, he's so hot right now. I'm debating between him and Blaney, Reddick or Blaney as my fourth, and I think I go with Reddick as the fourth.
Wow. So you actually did go chalk. If it wasn't for Hamlin, his points taken away, you'd be going with 1, 2, 3, and 4. So is that what
that is true?
Yeah. So all right. Well, we'll get you a sleeper though.
That is. I forgot about. Yeah.
Okay. So. Yeah, I know. I get the whole deal with Larson, but here's the thing too. And look, he has, because of the fact that he has that lead. That's the important thing, because even though, I mean, we've said this before, it is 21, 34, 39, 34, 34, 21, 21. And a few of these other drivers are the same way. Don't get me wrong. I mean, Bell's got a bunch of 30s. So that's the reason why anything can happen when you're just dealing with 3 races per round. If one of these 30s occur, and it can to any of these drivers. It does not have to be Atlanta. So let's just say it does happen in Atlanta, and that's pot luck. Now what happens if it really happens in one of the other two races? Well, if you're Kyle Larson or one of these top drivers, you might be done. That might be it. So anything is possible, and that's what makes it that much more difficult. But I completely get what you're saying. I mean, look, I'm going to go with Larson and Bell. So, and look, I agree with you with the way that Reddick is going. So I'll do that, and I need to find someone. I mean, I think if we're looking at like who is starting to, I mean, just look at this. Nobody here. Yeah, you have these you have third here and third here, but other than that, just look down this list over the last couple of races, and nobody's coming in like super hot into these playoffs. Even though Reddick is still, like, you got to go back with Reddick here at Charlotte all the way through, and he only has, 2 races outside the top 10. So that's why Reddick.
And I think that's why William Byron can be scary, because we know William Byron comes into these 10 races in the playoffs, and for whatever reason, he's able to find another gear and he steps it up. And that's probably why he's higher on the list in terms of the futures than some of the others that I would put ahead of him. We know William Byron steps up in the playoffs. So he's probably one of those ones that has terrible results heading into these 10 races. But that's why I think this format's so difficult to predict, especially when you've got a super speedway and a road course in each of the first 2 rounds. It just makes it impossible. And like you said, impossible to predict. And like you said, you basically get one mulligan race. If you're Kyle Larson, that's not even a race. You can get one bad race, but you've got to turn it on for the other 2 the way that this format works now.
I mean, look at Truex. He has not had a top 5 now, going all the way back to Kansas. 2 top 10s. I mean, that is. How does he? He's almost
been terrible.
And he
Vegas
wrecks.
is still putting him up at the top.
And he put himself in that position. It was so stupid.
Absolutely. And Vegas still puts him at the top. I don't know why. Like, I have turned off Martin Truex long ago. He's entering the playoffs with 36th, 24th, and 24th place finishes. And then he had a second at Bristol. But then 37th and 27th besides that. You get one mulligan round, Truex. When are you going to use it? I don't think he's going to make it through.
I'm going to go, I guess, the one driver that I'm going to go with that'll be a little bit outside would be Keselowski. So I'll put Keselowski in.
I can go with that. I like Keselowski. Yep.
All right, so sleeper. So now let's come down here. I mean, we could start even. So if you take Elliott, then sleeper means sleeper championship win. But then all here, like these guys here, can just be Final Four sleepers. So even though I already have Keselowski in, he's kind of already my sleeper. But I mean, if I had to take like a championship sleeper, I don't know. I mean, if I'm taking a championship sleeper, I guess I'd go with Logano. You know, since I already have Keselowski, because Logano's just that type of driver.
For me, Logano is a championship sleeper without question. He's one that can make his way through. He's been fast this entire season. There have been several races that he could have won and probably should have won, but didn't. And I can see him making it all the way to the Final Four. And if he makes it to the Final Four, he's done it before. No reason he can't win. So yeah, Logano, completely agree with you.
Yeah. Other than that, it's just really hard to. I mean, Elliott at 11-1 to win a championship. I mean, it's not bad, as I said before. You know, even saying this, because you're not going to make a whole lot of money with these 4 here. The problem is any of these guys can win the championship, and you're going to have to pick one of them. Which I'm sorry, but that's a 25% chance. and that's not very good. But what I could do is do this. I'm going to put my money on Byron, Blaney, Elliott, and then like say Keselowski or Logano, or take Keselowski, Logano, and two of these three, and I can have, or I could have Keselowski and Logano, and I could have five of them, and I could actually make money. And all right, if they lose, they lose, but I just think it's a much better. Remember, nobody thought Ryan Blaney was winning the championship last year. Nobody.
Yeah, I agree. And then if you want to talk about potential getting all the way to the top four, probably a sleeper there for me might be the Gibbs boy, just because he's picked up his pace, fifth, third, and ninth at Daytona, Michigan, and Bristol before 20th at Darlington. So if he continues delivering those top fives, top tens, he could figure out a way to advance all the way through, despite being at the bottom of the seeding right now. The chances of him going forward and winning the championship extremely low. I put that on Logano. But yeah, I think, otherwise you said a 25% chance with picking the top four. It's not even that, because we still got 9 races in order to get there.
Yeah, and so remember this. So this is what it looked like. These were the playoff drivers last year, and I mean, look at Blaney going into the playoffs. No top fives since his win at the Coke 600. See, he had 3 top tens,
And come up
4 top tens since that win. No top fives.
Yeah, and that's why I'm okay, I guess, a little bit more with the Byron Byron odds being further up the table, because he is somebody that we've talked about many seasons. He just steps up his game in those final 10, and yeah, his record coming into it certainly this year has cooled off from where he was at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, because remember, I mean, look at Byron. Now, Byron, see, the difference from last year, see, this is interesting, because you had Larson, Byron, and Bell, and Larson was nowhere near as good going into the playoffs as he has this year. Okay. Byron, though, I mean, he was, look at that. He had 3 wins going in over this stretch. He gets a win at Texas, and I'm pretty sure. No, I think Larson was the favorite, because Larson picked it up with the 2 wins in the playoffs, and he also had a runner-up, a couple of top fives. Larson was the favorite, but a lot of people also were picking Byron to win that championship last year in the race, and Blaney was the third choice.
Yep.
Even though Blaney had picked it up himself, like Larson, and won a couple of times in the playoffs. Christopher Bell was the long shot, and he was at it like that in Phoenix.
Yeah, it's all about, this format is all about peaking at the right time, and it helps to have the momentum going into it, but it's really about building up that momentum through these until you get to Phoenix.
And remember last year, how about this? Last year, check out these, look at this. At Phoenix, Byron, and this was the reason why a lot of people thought Byron was going to win, because he had won at Phoenix earlier that year. And he had Byron, and Blaney was second at Phoenix, and we know what happened with Blaney last year. That's the thing with Blaney. If Blaney can get if he can get to Phoenix, he don't care if he's 4th going into Phoenix. If he can get into Phoenix, he's been the best driver at Phoenix the last couple of years. Because he would have beaten Logano when Logano won the championship the year prior. He just let him win. And then he went ahead and again, he didn't win Phoenix, the race, but he did what he had to do. And he held off Larson and Byron and all the rest, with Chastain winning. But still, that's why Blaney's going to be in really good shape if he could just, it's not going to be easy. He's got to get to the Final Four. But if he can get there, he's going to be in really good shape. So let's go back to this year.
Yeah, and don't look now, but Ty Gibbs was 3rd at Phoenix earlier this season as well. So if he's able to make it to the Final Four, that could be a surprise potentially.
Yeah, Bell was the winner. And then let's move this down. There's Gibbs on the bottom here, third. Keselowski was fourth. There's Blaney, another top five at Phoenix. And, Logano, no, honestly, Logano really, he just, this year has been pretty disappointing for Logano, but you just have to get hot at the right time. I mean, look at Truex. He gets off to such a good start this year. He probably should have won twice. And
yes,
is very lucky to even be in the playoffs without a win.
Yes.
Yeah. So, okay. All right, so you're going to go Larson, Hamlin, Bell, Reddick. I'll go Larson, Bell, Reddick, Keselowski. But again, the betting strategies, my betting strategy and advice is going to be that I would go in some form of Byron, Blaney, probably even Keselowski and Logano, and then maybe even throw Elliott in there. That's the way I'm going to do it. I am not going to waste my money on any of these four because I don't have to. I've already got Bell. Now, if I was going to take a chance on one of these four, and this is what it's all come down to, because obviously I'm taking Bell. But if I just as my own portfolio, I already got Bell. What would I do with these other three? Got Larson, Reddick, I should just say. Hamlin, I don't have in there. But let's just say, Hamlin's. I get. Look, the only thing with Hamlin is that not that I don't think he could get there. It's just, I just don't know. Hamlin is I'm starting to get those vibes that it's just not meant to be for Denny Hamlin to win a championship. I hope that's not the case. I think Denny Hamlin's good for the sport. I think he's got a good show. I think he'll have a good career after NASCAR. But, I don't know. I'm just not getting a good feel for Denny. Hope I'm wrong. I'd like to see him win. But, I don't know. Maybe Reddick. Maybe Reddick would be the way that I would go. Maybe that's what I would do if I wasn't taking Bell. What about you? Who's going to be your pick?
My pick is going to be Reddick, actually, because he's building up the momentum as these playoffs approach. He's in a car that can do extremely well at Phoenix. We've talked all season about a driver, any driver, winning both races at the same track in a year, this year in particular, and not a single time have we taken it. So that throws Bell out. For you with Hamlin, I agree. I think he chokes. We'll see if he's able to overcome that. When he does, he will win his championship. I think he will win a championship at some point. But I think the last 2 years, maybe even longer than that, I've been putting him in there, and he's let me down each time. And then Kyle Larson, just too inconsistent, too up and down. I think at some point it's going to bite him, and it may well come at Phoenix. And by the way, he hasn't been as good at Phoenix as the Gibbs boys and the Toyotas. So therefore, I'm going to go with Tyler Reddick.
I think another driver that could make a run to the Final Four would be Bowman, because you're looking at a long shot, and you're looking at someone that, again, we talked about him having a really good year. Of course, he's cooled off a little bit, but he still has the win. It's just that since he had this run here of a lot of top fives and top tens, he has the win, the third place. It just did not end well with those last 5 races. But still, I just think that overall, you're talking about a 40-1 shot that I think he could get into another groove again and find himself, no wins, but find himself, just hanging in there and hanging in there and hanging in there and getting into the playoffs as the number 4 guy. Not win a championship, but I just don't think he can win at Phoenix or come close to winning. Because, again, you don't have to win at Phoenix. Just finish maybe second or third.
And that would be a typical Alex Bowman way of doing it.
Yes,
he always kind of pops his way out, unexpected. So, yeah, don't put that past Bowman.
Okay, so there you go. Nothing earth-shattering, but hopefully the advice we just gave you will help you with your playoff predictions moving forward. And Look, the good thing about it is you got 10 races. We're going to talk about it every week. So the futures are going to only move a little bit here and there. And, we'll after the first round, we'll kind of give our take all over again and let you know what we think for 3 more times before we get to the championship 4. Okay, now let's talk about Atlanta. So this is again like Daytona and Talladega. So you're going to have nobody's going to be a heavy favorite. There you see the odds of the drivers that are near the top. And a couple of trends. Okay, this is interesting because what's cool about Atlanta is they've started their whole super speedway deal at the same time the next gen. So that really makes things easy, to go back to how it works trend-wise. And doing that, Chevy has been the dominant car. They have won 4 of the 5 with the new speedway and the new next gen. And the other thing, which is very important, and that is we have not had Toyota win since 2013. So they don't like to track new speedway, next gen, or pre-next gen, pre-super speedway. They just don't like to track at all. And it's been 14 races that they haven't won. And the driver that won was actually a driver that is sitting there in tied for the odds lead, so to speak. Kyle Busch, different car, of course. He's driving a Chevy now, which is a good thing. So he's now in a Chevy, and they've been dominating lately. So
good thing.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, and Bush's win came back when Atlanta was just one time each year, all the way back then. So Hamlin won it in 2012, Bush won it in 2013. Ever since then, it's been predominantly Chevrolet and Ford. But like you said, since the next gen cars come out, it's certainly been all Chevrolet, which is why I think Kyle Busch, for the 3rd week in a row, probably even 4th or 5th, should be definitely worthy of being at the top there. Hopefully things go his way. He can get his win and carry on his streak, even though he didn't make it into the playoffs.
Well, look, the fact is if he keeps driving like they've been driving lately, he will. And this is the thing that, again, is a bummer, because we just showed you that you just got to get hot at the right time. And Kyle looks like that's exactly what's happening. And it's going to be good, but it'll be good in a way, of course, because if they can win a championship, but if they do well in the playoffs, it should help them for next season. It should.
Yeah, the team has a lot of rebuilding to do over the winter. Obviously, they got off completely on the wrong foot at the beginning of 2024, and that has cost them. And Busch even said so after Darlington. He, for missing out in the playoffs and finishing second, coming as close to winning a race and getting his way in over the past couple of weeks as he did, he was remarkably calm in his comments, just basically saying we were too far behind for too long, and that was too much to overcome. So they got to take this momentum into the offseason, into the winter, figure out what those problems are, and just carry that momentum forward and make sure that they don't bite again in 2025.
All right, so out of, let's see, the odds, and these should be pretty close, but let's just talk about these 4 here. Blaney just has 1 win in Atlanta, and it hasn't happened with the next gen, but he was second this year, led 31. We know how good he is. He's probably the best right now in these super speedways. Kyle has been, by the way, Kyle, very interesting. In his 5 next gen races, he has gotten a better result all 5. So he's gone from 33rd all the way down to 3rd. So he's either going to finish second on Sunday based on that trend, or he's going to finish first. He led 28 laps when he finished 3rd earlier this year. He's set up nicely. The only thing is you're getting 10 to 1. You're not going to get 10 to 1 with Kyle Busch in any other race. Maybe a road course, it all depends. But he's not at that level yet, even though he's hot, where you're going to get 10 to 1. So that's the only thing is the odds aren't really what you'd like to get. And it is a lucky track. So you might, so I wouldn't go all in with the chips on Kyle Busch this week. I might say just save it for another week where you're not going to have luck involved. But he's still a good play based on how hot he is and all these trends we've just talked about. Logano led 140 laps. That was dominant back in just last year. And then the only thing is the last couple of races not so good. Did lead 27 laps though this year. And Keselowski's got 2 wins in his career. Not a good result this year, but he does have a runner-up and a top 10 over his last 3. So out of these 4 right here, who would be your top pick?
It would be a coin flip between Blaney and Busch, to be honest with you. They finished 2nd and 3rd here in the spring. Honestly, I think I'd give the edge to Busch just because of how well he's raced the past couple of weeks. But we do know that it is very difficult for a non-playoff driver to win a playoff race. So Blaney might get the edge there, but in my heart, it says Busch just based on the way that he's been driving recently.
Then there's the next group. We go from Elliott and Byron at 12 to 1. Larson, Hamlin, Suarez, and Buescher at 14 to 1. You just got to get a kick out of the Larson being 14 to 1 again still in a super speedway race. Just keep doing it. So it is 5 races at Atlanta with the next gen, with the super speedway. He's crashed 4 times. Okay, 14 to 1. I can see why.
4 out of the last 5, all of the 3. Yeah. No way you'd choose Larson this week.
No, he's got the same odds as Denny Hamlin. Now I know Hamlin hasn't had a good run at Atlanta, but that's still, we know Hamlin is still right up there with Ryan Blaney as one of the best super speedway drivers. So, so look, I'm not taking Hamlin because, like I just said, he just for some reason he hasn't done well here at Atlanta, and it is different. Atlanta's not Daytona. Atlanta's not Talladega, but it's still similar. A lot of similarities. Just look at Larson. Elliott, he's got a win. That was 2022 when he led 96 laps. Byron, though. Yes, Byron is the one. And Suarez. Those are the 2 that I'm looking at. Buescher, forget him. I don't even know why he's 14 to 1. Look, I know he's pretty decent in the super speedways. That's probably why, but he's never done well at Atlanta either. So I'm going Suarez and Byron for sure, especially Byron. He's got 2 wins in the next gen, 2 wins in the new super speedway, and Suarez, 1st this year, 2nd in this race last year. So his last 2 results for Suarez, 1st and 2nd. He also has another 2 more top 10s and another top 5 out of 5 super speedway races here. So Suarez loves Atlanta as far as the super speedway, which is really, again, unusual because he's awful at Daytona. So again, it just shows you that they're not all similar, these super speedways. But yeah, I think Suarez and Byron are definite picks for me.
Yeah, I like those. I might throw Elliott into that grouping as well because he's had some pretty decent success. I do think Byron is the top choice, but this is Elliott's home track. He won from pole in 2022. He had 2 other poles prior to that. 13th and 15th are the only question marks of his last 2 races at this track, but both of those came from him starting outside of the top 20. Whereas all of his good finishes have come from him starting inside the top 10. So maybe look for where Elliott qualifies this weekend. Byron, definitely the top choice out of that bunch, though.
The next group, we have starting with Chastain, and we're going to run them through, well, let's just do these 4. Chastain, Cindric, Reddick, and Bell. Chastain, runner-up in 2022 in both races. And again, Suarez teammates. But since then, just a 7th this year, still, he with Suarez, you would think that they'd be good. Problem is, like you said, he's not a playoff driver. So if he wasn't going to do well when he's a non-playoff driver, I don't know what he's going to do now. I don't know where his mind is. So yeah, I just can't go with Chastain at this point. It's sort of like Truex right now for me. It's like I just can't take these drivers right now. Chastain's last shot was last week, and it just didn't work out. But Cindric, he's had a pretty good run, and he's got excellent super speedway teammates. But he's 18-1, so we got to deal with that. Reddick, not good. Just one top 5 out of 8 career races. And that did come recently, but his other results in the next gen are pretty bad. And Bell, same thing, just one top 5. That same thing like Reddick, came during the next gen, but the other results were bad. So Reddick and Bell really just haven't done all that well here. Cindric actually has the best resume.
Reddick and Bell, you've got to avoid because they're both Toyotas, plus the fact that they have terrible histories here. Ross Chastain, I agree with you. I'm not sure exactly where he's been recently. This hasn't been the typical Ross Chastain season that we've come to appreciate the past couple of years. Austin Cindric is a clear choice among this group. He's been actually really good at this track. So aside from his first 2 starts in the series at Atlanta, if you look at the fall race, I should say, of 2022 and beyond, 3rd, 11th, 12th, and 4th, and he's led laps in all 4 of those races. So Austin Cindric, the clear choice there of that group.
Okay. And by the way, same thing with you reminded me about Toyota. Same thing with Denny Hamlin. So you want to know a reason why Denny Hamlin isn't done well at Atlanta? There you go. Okay. And then, yeah, let's go with these here. McDowell.
This page speaks for itself. You've got 3 Toyotas. You got to throw them all out. Just because of that, you go with Michael McDowell.
I got a problem with that, especially
it's an easy
since
selection here as well.
In his last 2 races here, 8th and 4th, and he led 27 laps this year. But I tell you what, if I was going to take a long shot, I mean a Toyota, maybe you go just with the long shot, and you take a stab at Bubba since he was 5th this year, which is his best finish. But yeah, it's still hard for me to do that. So yeah, 100%. I think I agree with you.
That's his only top finish at Atlanta. He prior to that, his best finish at this track was 13th, and that was on the super speedway era. So gotten better certainly, but yeah, if you're going to go for a long shot, that's probably the only way I'd take him.
Out of these drivers here, Briscoe, Bowman, Dillon, and Gilliland. Look, Bowman, even though he's driving a Chevy, is not done well here. But you're getting 35-1, and he is driving a Chevy. So I might look at Bowman as a long shot. Briscoe's never done well here. I mean, ever. Dillon, nothing. Gilliland, though, remember, even though he faded late, he led 58 laps this year. He's never done anything close to that anywhere in the Cup Series. So I might throw a buck on Bowman and Gilliland.
I would absolutely throw $1 on Gilliland. The 58 laps led is great. He qualified 4th that day, and yeah, he faded. He was really strong. He also qualified inside the top 10 the fall race here last year and finished 16th. Prior to that, he was 15th and 17th. He's only got one, well, besides this year where he faded and led the 58 laps, he's only got one finish, really speaking, that he didn't do much at this track. So of that bunch, certainly Todd Gilliland, you got to go with $1 there.
And then the rest here, you got Stenhouse, Jones, Berry, and Burton. Stenhouse was 6th earlier this year, so that's not a surprise knowing him on the super speedway. So you always have to consider Stenhouse as a long shot. He's a guy you might want to throw a buck at. Jones has been okay overall here. Nothing from Berry or Burton. LaJoy, though, absolutely throw a buck on LaJoy at least. He's been solid here. He has a couple top 5s with the next gen on the super speedway. And to tell you the truth, that would be it for me. Out of the rest of these guys, I wouldn't go with anyone here on the list. So what about you? What about all these other long shots?
Well, yeah, I think Corey LaJoie, you already named him. He's coming off. He's been good at this track, but he's also coming off another really good finish. He finished ninth last week at Darlington, so LaJoie finds a way to the end of the super speedway races. He's been pretty good at Atlanta as well. So despite the fact that they're different, he's just got that style of drive. So Corey LaJoie for me is the best of that bunch, and I probably wouldn't actually go with anybody else because looking at Gregson or maybe. Barry or some of the other ones that you've got out there, they just have nothing to speak of at Super Speedway Atlanta, so avoid them.
All right, so there you go. It's time for picks. What you gonna do?
Oh man, top choice. Let's go with. I hesitate, but I'm going to go with Kyle Busch as my top choice. I was thinking about him and potentially Blaney. I just like Busch's. I like his trajectory right now. He's just driving as good as he's been all season. So I'm going to ride it while it's still going. Cindric will be. He was mid pack, right?
Yep, he's 18.
Yeah, so I'll take Cindric as my mid pack, and then for my long shot,
LaJoie.
Yeah, I'll go LaJoie.
All right, I'm gonna go Byron, beating out Suarez. You took Cindric, so I'll take Bowman and why not? I'll take Gilliland.
Excellent choice.
We did talk about, we had that question earlier this year about whether our viewers thought that Gilliland or McDowell would win. So maybe this would be a really good race to take them both.
I agree with that. Yep, I still think it can happen. We still got Talladega yet to come too, so could be good for them.
Okay, so again, the playoffs continue next week with the road course at Watkins Glen. And who won earlier this year at Watkins? I mean, who won somebody? Does anybody? I don't think anybody has like any sort of great run this year on the road courses, do they?
No, it's been pretty. I don't want to say predictable, but it's your typical road course people. Tyler Reddick, Christopher Bell up there. Truex throwing it away often. So, yeah, no real trends there to speak of. I think Bell and Reddick probably when we get to a road course are going to end up being the favorites, though, when we come to Watkins Glen.
Let's see. Sonoma, that was Larson. And how many do we have this year?
Good question.
Sonoma. What's the other road courses? Oh, we had, no, it's not.
Circuit of the Americas.
Oh, so that was the first one? Is that what that was? So Coda's a road course? That was the win by Byron.
Correct. And then Sonoma was the next one.
Yep, that
and
was
then
Larson.
Chicago.
Yeah, I guess if you want to count Chicago. I mean, I don't, but you can count that if you like. That was the Bowman win. So... yeah. All right. Well, there you go. So Watkins Glen next week. We won't be live, but we will be on the air. And normally, if we are not live, then you should be able to get the show sometime late on Tuesday, unless, of course, something happens. We have to reschedule for Friday, which is the only reason why the show would not be available on Tuesday. I will be back on Saturday at some time. Because, again, I have no idea what time they are going to be qualifying and practicing this week. But I will be on the air. I mean, I got lucky on Saturday because I did the post-game show, as I've said. And this week, Penn State's playing a 12 o'clock game again, which means I have to do that post-game show about 3:30, 4 o'clock. And it was and what happened last week is they had a 2-hour rain delay in West Virginia. So I wound up being able to – I was able to sneak in – the 15-20 minute starting lineup video during the rain delay, and so that worked out for me. But if I can't get that lucky, chances are might have to get it done sometime early evening on Saturdays. Again, it all depends when they qualify and practice on Saturday, but that's when we'll see you back right here on Prime Sports Network. No F1 this week, so keep that in mind. And F1 returns with what next week?
F1 returns next week with Azerbaijan, and then the week after that, they go to Singapore.
Okay, so there you go. More F1 talk coming up in a week right here on Prime Sports Network, and over, of course, on Mystery Caution, where we do post all of our F1 coverage. And also what we do is we put the entire show. So we'll have this entire show on Mystery Caution. We'll have the playoff show and the Atlanta previews separated in individual videos right here on Prime Sports Network. Back on Saturday for the starting lineup show. Thanks for checking us out as always. Let us know what's on your mind, questions, comments, anything else that you want us to either get engaged in a conversation, or if you have any advice you want us to give you, we're always welcome. We appreciate your responses, and have a fun Sunday, because you're competing with the NFL for the first time. So it's going to be a wild weekend in sports, and we're looking forward to it. Let's see. You will not be able to reconnect.